HQ presented by GMC reports that JaMarr Chase and the Bengals are close to coming to an agreement on what would be a mega deal, maybe make him the highest paid wide receiver in the league, but it hasn't happened yet. Chase holding in during camp and is the last of those big name receivers to try to get a deal done before the season, with the Bengals opening up at home Sunday against the Patriots on CBS. He's looking to make at least $35 million per season, which is what Justin Jefferson is getting. And that's kind of the question at the top of a lot of these drafts. Maybe you go CeeDee Lamb first, but then you go Justin Jefferson or JaMarr Chase. We've got a couple guys to help you answer that. Jamey Eisenberg and Dave Richard joining us from Fantasy Football today. Jamey, you guys were both on set, actually, when I made my first pick, and you guys both agreed, take Justin Jefferson over JaMarr Chase. At this point in the game, are you starting to risk that he's not going to maybe fulfill his expectations, at least in week one, if he's not signed? Jamey, you can go first.
No, I think he'll be out there. You know, I think the fact that they're getting close on a deal is probably a goodwill gesture on the Bengals' part to make sure that JaMarr Chase is ready to go. Remember, he still has 2 years left on his deal. He wants to be the highest paid wide receiver, wants one more penny than Justin Jefferson, so the LSU battle still in full effect. But I expect JaMarr Chase to be out there. You do drop him down a little bit in the rankings, so he's behind Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and now Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he is the end of that top-tier group of wide receivers. If you want to take A.J. Brown over him, I think you can as well. I just wouldn't do that. I just think that there's a higher ceiling for JaMarr Chase when everything is right. So understandably, a lot of fantasy managers are going to be concerned until he's at practice doing everything that Chase is capable of doing. But I expect to see him out there week one and hopefully dominating a very bad Patriots team.
I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. And I easily a top 10 pick. I'm good taking him as soon as 8th overall in a full PPR league, maybe a smidge later if it's non-PPR. But here's one other thing to remember. He practiced last week. He had a couple of days where he was actually on the field. So when's the last time we had a player holding out and he was still practicing with his team? It's pretty rare. I like that he's got that time, as little as it might be, with the team. He's certainly been with the team all training camp long. He's a hold in, not a hold out. As long as he gets back on the practice field in front of week one, expect him to have a good week one, and then expect him to have a very good 2024 season.
Well, he was one of those guys that broke out as a rookie with 13 touchdowns in the 2021 season. Both Dave and Jamey have brought their all breakout teams to the table for us as we head into week one. And just like JaMarr Chase with Joe Burrow, Jamey, you have a couple former LSU Tigers, a quarterback and a wide receiver, rookies that are on your team. Take us through it.
Yeah, it would be fun if they were playing together, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. So Jane Daniels, I expect to have a huge year. You know, we did our bold predictions on our podcast, and I think he's going to be one of those guys, actually fourth quarterback, fifth time to do it, to get to 1,000 yards rushing. Love the setup for him based on how he'll use his legs. Had over 1,000 yards in 12 games at LSU last year. Ken Walker, James Cook, two breakout running backs for this season. Walker, I think, is going to benefit tremendously with the Ryan Grubb system there in Seattle. Hopefully he'll get to 40-plus catches. And right now, Zach Charbonnet is dealing with an injury. You got James Cook coming off a strong finish with Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator there for the Bills. They lost 241 targets, so a big opportunity for him in the passing game. If he can somehow get more than 2 rushing touchdowns, I think he's going to justify taking him in the back end of round 2, early round 3. A couple 3 wide receivers on this list in Drake London, Christian Watson, and George Pickens, all set up for huge years. London gets the quarterback upgrade in Kirk Cousins. Pickens gets a quarterback upgrade to some extent with Russell Wilson, but no Deontay Johnson. Love the setup for him. And Watson, I think, is going to be the best Packers wide receiver because of what he does, just different than the other 3 guys there. And then you mentioned Malik Neighbors as the other LSU guy. We don't always talk about rookies as breakouts, but I think he's going to justify being drafted in the 3rd round. Love the setup for him in terms of targets. Now, the quarterback is obviously ugly with Daniel Jones, but I think Neighbors will be a borderline top 15 wide receiver this year. And Dalton Kincaid, maybe my favorite breakout player of any position. Just love the setup for him. Again, with all those targets vacated in Buffalo, should be the go-to guy for Josh Allen.
Jamey and Dave kind of on the same page with some of these. In fact, 3 different players are on your team as well, Dave, that were on Jamey's team. Ken Walker, Drake London, and Dalton Kincaid. Take us through some of the others that you see having a breakout season.
Let's start right at the quarterback position with Anthony Richardson. And I know fantasy managers saw him play in the preseason and they said, how is that guy a great fantasy option? Because he wasn't accurate with his passes. Well, what he does with his feet will be just as important. If you enjoyed what Josh Allen did and what Jalen Hurts did and Lamar Jackson and all these other Russian quarterbacks, then you know what to expect from Anthony Richardson, who was on pace last year for 24 rushing touchdowns. I'm going to take the under on that number, but I do think he is a candidate for over 1,000 yards on the ground. And so anything that he gives you as a passer is a bonus. Isaiah Pacheco is on my list. I think he has the best year of his career. I think he's set for a very good year in Kansas City. Think about all the moves that the Chiefs made this offseason. Safeties cannot crowd the box against Kansas City any longer. It's going to be smooth sailing for Pacheco. Much better efficiency this year. Garrett Wilson, people kind of squirm at a Jet being in the first round, and especially when there's two. But if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, and that offensive line should protect Aaron Rodgers better than it did last year, Garrett Wilson's on pace for a monster season. And we've seen it now 2 years in New York with the Jets. He's averaged anywhere from 8.6 to 10 targets per game, depending on the season. And even if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, Chris, we've got Tyrod Taylor behind him. Tyrod Taylor better than what Garrett Wilson dealt with last year. So I absolutely think that Garrett Wilson can have a monster season. And then one other receiver on that list that I want to talk about is Chris Olave with the New Orleans Saints. This is a new offense coming to New Orleans. Olave, the clear #1 guy. Volume will be in his favor. I expect him to have the best year of his career in 2024.
All right, Dave Richard and Jamey Eisenberg bringing their all breakout teams to the table here as many drafts are tonight, tomorrow, leading up to Thursday's kickoff of the season. Latest episode, as Jamey mentioned, just released this morning, bold predictions along with ADP risers and fallers as we get deeper into the fantasy draft season.